Okay, so one of the last parts of chapter 10 we'll be looking at is adjusting audio levels for clips. And we're going to look at a variety of different ways to do this. So if you do not have your desert montage open, go ahead and open that one from your master sequence. Double click desert montage. As you can see, they already have some keyframes set here. They have 4. I know these end ones are hard to see, but it's telling us the middle part's still too high, and it wants us to make adjustments to the middle 2 points. So what you can do is you can just hover your cursor over top of this. You can see what our volume level is. It's set at 0. And if you left click on the dot, you can just drag this down. The book does not give us a set amount of time, but I want these to come down close to the same. And you can see now the rubber band has been collectively lowered where it was high before. So that is affecting one specific clip, and it adjusted the rubber band. Notice that the number that we saw here, the negative 9.8, is also reflected up here at the top. So you could go into the effects control panel and manually type when you're on top of one of these actual diamonds. And you can move frame from frame to make sure they are actually highlighted and you are changing it. You just move back and forth until you're actually on it. Since we made the adjustment in our timeline, sometimes after you've done that, you won't be able to hit the mark because you've shifted it slightly off of the frame. As we've talked about the 44 100ths before, that's why I can no longer hit this exact mark. I could drag it over and now it's actually on a frame. But I'm really close to where they were originally. So either way, you can come down here and move them in the clip itself, or you can come up here to the effects control panel and make those adjustments. All right, the next thing is talking about is adding keyframes with the pen tool. And you can choose to select the pen tool and place dots on top of the rubber band. Another shortcut is Command or Control with your selection tool chosen, and this will now change as I hover over it with a plus symbol, so I can add additional keyframes. The book is wanting us to make some exaggerated keyframes, so I can go in here and definitely make them exaggerated, and this is me holding Control down. Once it's added, you can click and drag it to make it a lot more extreme. Or you can use the pen tool, and that allows you to make the whole movement in one step. So just putting some in here to mimic what the book was doing. These are all manual. I'm just putting them in wherever I feel like. And you can go through and play this and see that now it's a little crazy. It's maybe a little overwhelming because you have such drastic changes in your music. So one of the things you can do is to try to like smooth these out. We've talked about with effects before that you can ease in or ease out of an effect. The same goes true with these here points. When you have it highlighted, you can right click and you have these options such as ease in, ease out, and delete. So if there's one that you don't want, you can also get rid of it here as well. Basically, you can pick and choose here to see how it affects. You see it gives you the Bezier handles so you can smooth the movement, and you could do that to all of them. You can get more than one, I believe, if you try to highlight. You can click and hold shift, and now that I have 3 chosen, I can right click on any one of those 3 and choose ease in, ease out, and it affected all three at once. So that's a way to manipulate more than one keyframe at a time, and that basically is one of the manipulations that the book was talking about. All right, another thing it was wanting us to do now is the audio clip mixer, and that's going to be up here. That's audio track mixer, and we were looking for audio clip mixer. So make sure you pick the correct one. So it wants audio clip mixer. So we choose that one. And then this bar that you're seeing on the left side with the numbers for the meter is called a fader. And this is kind of the standard term that you have if you're working an audio board, and it allows you to literally slide up and down on the meter, and it makes those adjustments. Using a clip mixer, it's going to create track-based keyframes, and they work in the same way as the clip-based ones. So before we made the adjustments down here on the clip, the thing is, if we do it here, it's not going to move with this clip. It's going to stay with this track. So any adjustments I make here, as I move throughout this, it's going to start setting keyframes on that as well. So you can see that my timeline or my keyframes are changing here on this clip. However, this is now being held with the clip mixer. So if I brought in and put a new music clip on here, it would mimic those three keyframes that I just did up here with the clip mixer. Like, they're still going to be on this track. So it's another way to manipulate tracks. If there's something that you're trying to pick a type of music and you wanted the beginning to fade up and then the end to fade out, or the middle to get louder, you could make those changes in your clip mixer, and it will keep all the stuff adjusted to the track. So that's how your clip mixer works. All right, the next part, it's going to have us take a look at our audio 1 track. And we're actually going to add more keyframes. And we did some of that with the fader already. You want to make sure that your playhead is at the beginning of the clip, and you want to enable your right keyframes. So some of my other stuff might not have stayed. It may have just adjusted before. And as we move this, it should be syncing in some new keyframes. As you can see, it's plopping some new ones onto there. Alright, so we've done all those manually, and you can play through your sequence and see how the adjustments are working. And you can actually play through, like this could be playing. I didn't do it because it would be obnoxious while I'm talking, and make adjustments on the fly. So it would add those keyframes, and they would populate after you stopped playing the timeline. You can repeat the process, and you'll eventually get a whole lot more keyframes. One of the things that you can do to limit how many keyframes you end up with is you can go up to, and if this is on a PC, it would be under Edit. If it's on a Mac, it would be under Premiere Pro, and you're going to choose Preferences, and you're going to come down to audio, and this is going to open another window that you guys have probably not seen before, but you can choose to set a time of 500 milliseconds. So we can come in here and change this from 1 to 500. So it just changes to 5 because of the way this is set up. And then you say okay, and then you set the playhead back to the beginning. And once again, you can use the audio clip mixer, which is what we were in, and it will control how many keyframes you have as you move along in this. It's still engaged, so it's adding more. And the book definitely shows an extensive amount of keyframes, but every time you make an adjustment, it's going to add keyframes. However, by setting that 500 millisecond, it's going to limit what your keyframes look like. And if you check out the book, you can see in part 4, there's just tons and tons of keyframes. But then in part 7, it's kind of cleaned it up. It made it more smooth, moving up and down. So that's another way that you can adjust keyframes. Most of the time, you usually just don't have it as extreme as we're doing. This is kind of an over-exaggeration, so you can get an idea of how this works. Audio, when you're working with it, most of the time it's fairly smooth moving. So hopefully this has given you a good understanding of some of the different ways that you can manipulate clips with audio. And then remember, Clip Mixer affects these audio track and not just the clip itself. So if I put in a new piece, those would be maintained as well.